What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, and in today's episode, we're going to be doing the NBA Weekly Q&A. For those of y'all who do not follow me on Twitter, today would be a great day to do that. I'm Pee Wee the Plug at Twitter, same as my YouTube name. You got to follow me so you can stay in tune with these type of opportunities. Now that we're in this part of the season where NBA free agency has kind of slowed down, the trades and the player movement have kind of slowed down a little bit. We're past the draft and summer league. I'm going to be leaning on y'all a little bit to figure out what we should talk about, discuss, or, different Q&As and things like that for the NBA Weeklies that's coming up. So, again, make sure you follow me at Pee Wee the Plug. Same thing as my YouTube. And as always, before we dive into the questions, make sure y'all hit that like button for me. And if you're new and you enjoy this type of content on a weekly basis, make sure you subscribe. The first question that we got is from my guy, Young Simba. Shout out to the 2K Messiah. He says, which teams do you think will take the biggest jump and biggest fall in the standings this year? As far as the biggest jump, there's a lot of different candidates. A lot of people are having a lot of conversations about OKC and Shea, and Chet is now healthy. You got J-Dub and Giddey. They just been having a really, really good rebuild over the last few years, and I definitely understand that. You even have the Magic out there in the East who have been having a really solid rebuild as well. But I have to go with the Dallas Mavericks, a team that didn't make the playoffs last year and had a really, really good year the year before that. I think I'm going to put my money on them. They've had a really good offseason. I love the draft that they had with Derek Lively and Omax. I love them bringing back Kyrie. You talk about the offseason acquisitions of bringing in Seth Curry again. You bring in Grant Williams. I just really, really like their offseason. And if you can get Kyrie and Luka on a full year, really figuring out how to play off of each other and how to coexist with each other on the floor, I think you have a really lethal offense. And if you continue to build with the defensive guys that you have, like Josh Green, Grant Williams, even with Derek Lively can give you Maxi Kleber, and there's still some potential out there to make a few more moves. Don't know if they're bringing back Christian Wood. Don't know if there's going to be a sign and trade. Don't really know what his value is on the open market at all. And there's even been rumors of them potentially going out and making a deal with the Pistons to bring in Killian Hayes and Bojan Bogdanovic. So, Bojan Bogdanovic. I almost made that mistake. So, yeah, if you can bring in Bogdanovic and you can add him to this team, we're talking about Luka, Kyrie, Bogdanovic, Grant Williams, and, Dwight Powell starting. And eventually, I think you can even have some situations where Derek Lively could be one of those impactful rookies who can get some real minutes and challenge Dwight Powell for the starting spot at the center. That would be a really, really good circumstance for the Dallas Mavericks. It's just about how quick a guy like Derek Lively can understand defensive rotations and defensive responsibilities at the pro level in a Jason Kidd-led defense. So that's what it's about. But anytime you have an MVP candidate like Luka and you finally get him some explosive offensive help like Kyrie Irving, plus the defensive versatility that you have with Grant Williams, Josh Green, Maxi Kleber, I just think that you have a team with a lot of upside that's going to win a lot of games in a lot of different ways. And based off the defensive dip they took last year, bringing in some of those guys this year, I think can get them back on track, and they'll be an explosive team out west. So I definitely look at the Mavericks taking a big, big jump. As far as teams that'll fall, it's not that I think either one of these teams are going to fall completely out of the playoffs. It's just that I don't think they're going to have the same seasons. The first team, Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant being out for the first 25 games is a very, very big blow. You also have to consider the fact that usually you have Tyus Jones coming in to replace Ja Morant, who has some familiarity with the team, knows guys' spots, where they like to be, how they like to play. You now have Marcus Smart, Marcus Smart is still very good, and I think he fits the Memphis Grizzlies grit and grind, edgy mentality very, very well. But because there is going to be an adjustment period for him to play with them and understand guys' spots, where they're comfortable, and different things like that, that could maybe get them off to a slow start. And then you add in the fact that they won't have Ja until the 26th game of the year. That's going to put them in a tough position to replicate what they did last year as a second seed, I believe, out west. So I got the Grizzlies taking a fall. The other team I have taking a fall is the Sacramento Kings. And again, it's not that I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or that they're going to, have the complete opposite of a year. But because last year was so magical for them and because a lot of things went right, I think they put themselves in a position where it's going to be hard to duplicate. And a lot of teams out west got better. I already mentioned the Mavericks. The Suns got better. The Lakers got better. The Clippers are always a team you have to consider because of Kawhi and Paul George. You even look at the Denver Nuggets, the reigning champ. That's already 5 teams who I think got a lot better. And that could put the Kings at a position where they're on the outside looking in at home court advantage, 5th, 6th seed, potentially, if anything, any injuries or anything like that, which we hope don't happen, then you could talk about a play-in team. So I just think that they brought back the same roster. They had some minor tweaks and minor adjustments. So they're kind of banking on their role players to kind of replicate the same exact value or production. And then you also are banking on Keegan Murray having a really, really big second-year jump. And all of those things can happen. But because of how good the offseason was for a lot of teams out west, it just puts them at an uphill battle, especially when you even consider a team like the Clippers have an opportunity to go out and get a guy like James Harden all of a sudden. That is really going to put a lot of pressure on them to kind of replicate last season's magic. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that again for the second straight year. So the Kings and the Grizzlies are 2 teams that I think will slip in the standings. Shout out to my guy, Mikey Groggins. He says, do you see any players making a Julius Randle or Lauri Markkanen type jump out of nowhere? What makes this question so hard is the last part, the out of nowhere. Number one, the state of the NBA fandom or the community, I'll say, it's hard for anybody to do anything out of nowhere because there's a podcast for every team. There's a community on Twitter for every team. There's an Instagram community for every team. There's a subreddit or TikTok for every single team that's documenting any progression or uptick in production for any player on any team. It's hard for anything to come out of nowhere. It's just hard to be so sleep on anything when you're tapped into the NBA community, which I like. It just keeps us all aware and nobody's really forgotten about. But I do have a few names. The first name is kind of a guy that's kind of obvious candidate for, which is Obi Toppin. And again, to go back to my first point of out of nowhere, the second part to that is also Lauri Markkanen and Julius Randle went from kind of nothing to all NBA and all-star. So Obi Toppin, I think, is going to be a most improved player candidate. He's going to have an uptick in minutes. He's going to have a lot more opportunity. And not only with those 2 things, he's on a team that fits his game and his style a lot better than the Knicks did. We were more slow paced, more defensive, more gritty. And he likes to get out and run, dunk. And we had those moments in New York off the bench, but now that he's able to do it with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton and having guys like Benedict Mathurin, they're all pushing the pace and them hard. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for Obi Toppin to really show his characteristics on what makes him a valuable player. Even with all that being said, is Obi Toppin going to go into all NBA tier? That's hard for me to see. That's just hard for me to really predict. So even then, this question is super, super tough. And because, Julius did it and Lauri did it, we all are kind of trying to figure out who that next person can be. But we also have to remember those are 2 outstanding situations that we can't assume to see on a regular basis. So Obi Toppin is a clear-cut candidate. But again, to predict that he's going to be all NBA is just really, really tough for me. A couple of guys that I think can be in here based off of the out of nowhere. I think Utah, speaking of Lauri Markkanen, has a glaring opportunity at the guard position, the lead guard position to be specific. So I have 2 of their guards on my list. One is THT. THT last year in his game log had something that was a bit of a pattern, which is when THT got 30 minutes or more, he was a very productive player for the Jazz. Whether it was scoring, whether it was assisting, whether it was rebounding, whether it was games where he was doing a little bit of everything. I seen THT have games where he had 30-something, 41, double-doubles, 10 assists. He even had games he only had 9 points, but he may have had 9 assists and 8 rebounds. Like, when he played 30-plus minutes, he gave them something. And if he can get that for a full season with the weapons that they have, you add John Collins, the extra year of Ochai Agbaji, some of the new rookies like Taylor Hendricks, Keontae George, he could be very, very productive as we've seen. Another guy, Colin Sexton, a guy who, like THT, has his moments, has had moments throughout his entire career, but Colin Sexton is a really much better shooter. He's a much better isolation player. The only thing he doesn't have that THT has is the passing. Colin Sexton is going to have to figure out how to beat teams with the pass and become a much more better passer to take on a lead guard role, because you have Larry Marketing, you have Walker Kessler, you now have John Collins, you have Jordan Clarkson. He's going to have to be able to make those guys effective. And if he can figure that out, he maybe is primed for a breakout year. If THT is the one that gets the opportunity, he's going to be primed for maybe potentially a breakout year. And also, there's Keontae George, the rookie guard, who had an outstanding summer league. And if Will Hardy and the Utah Jazz want to empower him from day one, he could have a breakout year. But I think the Utah Jazz lead guard position is one to look for as far as breakout seasons go. Couple other names real quick that I have for this. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons fits the out of nowhere. The reason I put Ben Simmons in this is because a lot of people have written Ben Simmons completely off. When he first got to the Nets, it was like, what did he do? This could be a good situation for him. Play that Draymond Green role. He never played. They were teasing him coming back in the playoff. Never played. That pissed people off, kind of wrote him off. Last year coming into the season, he did the JJ Redick podcast and was popping his shit. Got people excited. Oh, man, yeah. Didn't get that. So now people are kind of just completely written Ben off. But with this team in particular, and with all eyes kind of off of Ben, the whole 76ers beef and shit, I think that's kind of died down a little bit. Nobody really cared. Like the Sixers versus the Nets, nobody's circling on our calendar or like, oh my gosh, what are the Sixers fans going to say to Ben? We don't really care at this point. Like, it's old news. So with all of that behind Ben, if he can just get to the point of anything near the old Ben, he's going to be back as a breakout player. You know, it's funny because Ben, we used to look at and we used to be like, man, if only you shot some threes or if you were more aggressive. Now we're at the point where we're like, Ben, just go back to the old you and we won't ask you for anything else. You don't have to shoot threes anymore. You don't have to be more aggressive. Just give us 14, 8-8 with all NBA defense on this Nets team and everything's forgiven. Like, we will never complain again about the lack of aggression or lack of three-point shots. Just give us the old Ben back. But on this particular team, I just think that Ben Simmons is always going to have a Draymond Green type role out there for him as long as he's healthy. And I think that's a part that kind of gets lost in a lot of this. Ben Simmons just hasn't been healthy. And I think he's been so eager to kind of prove himself and to get out of that cloud that, you know, he's tried to play not healthy and it's made him look extremely, extremely bad. But on any given night, a healthy Ben Simmons can give you 10 to 14 points, all in transition or dunks or mismatches in the post. He's going to be able to give you 6 to 7 assists and 6, 7, or 8 rebounds with a lot of good versatility on the defensive end. You put that on this team with Claxton and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, I think you can have something really, really good. But Ben Simmons has to get healthy and he has to get mentally strong to be able to go out there and compete at a high level that people are going to be used to seeing him at. So I put Ben Simmons in that. Two other guys, Kyle Kuzma. There's no Bradley Beal. Kyle Kuzma, this is kind of your team to shoot up all the shots. Yeah, Jordan Poole is there, but ultimately Kyle Kuzma is kind of the guy in Washington. So I think he's going to take on that role. You have more of a lead guard and a floor general in Tyus Jones. You also have Jordan Poole. You have Denny with some defense around you. Kyle Kuzma could potentially average the most points we've ever seen him average in his career in this year. And then lastly, DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter took major strides in his offensive impact and value, and that was an extremely weak part of his game. I just think now he has to really dial in on the three-point shooting. When you play with Trae Young, you play with DeJounte Murray, you have to figure out a way to be a sniper from three because you're going to get a lot of catch-and-shoot opportunities playing off of those guys, and the 35% that he shot last year is not going to cut it. He has to get back to the 38% from the year before or even more, 39 to 40%. If DeAndre Hunter, with his defensive value, can continue his progression in ISO, plus get back to shooting 38% from three and be more aggressive offensively, there's a world where he's a breakout guy. He can literally mold himself into another Mikal Bridges type player. He just has to dial in again from the perimeter and continue to be aggressive on the offensive end. But DeAndre Hunter is definitely a guy that I would put in this category as well. Shout out to my little bro, Smalls325 says, is versatility the most important thing in today's game? Is versatility the most important thing in today's game? That's a good question. Is versatility the most important thing? Versatility is definitely important, especially on the defensive end. But I would even argue that offensive versatility is kind of creeping up too. You want to be able to play um, next to anybody. When you look at all of the guys who are in the league who control the ball, valuable basketball players are the ones that can play with and next to anybody. So you're valuable if you can be the lead guy, but then if your team makes an offseason acquisition and you could now be effective off the ball, you could be effective with the ball. Like, those are the most valuable players in the league. That's why Kevin Durant is always so sought after, because Kevin Durant is a guy who you can just give him the ball and make everybody get out of his way. Or you can put him with the Warriors, a 73-win team, and nothing really changes and nobody gets affected. Or you can put, the Suns had no fear of acquiring him with Devin Booker, because it's like Kevin Durant can play with it, without it, on a post, mid-post, catch and shoot, isolation. Kevin Durant is just going to figure it out offensively. He's just that damn good. And I think defensive players are the same way, where it's like, shit, you put a guy like Mikal Bridges anywhere, he's going to defend. You put Bam anywhere, he's going to defend. So Aaron Gordon, defensive versatility really showed for a Denver Nuggets type team. I would say versatility is the most important thing, but if there's anything to challenge versatility, I'm going to say is having a specialty, being a specialist. There are certain guys who aren't as versatile in NBA, but they keep a job because they're specialists. You know what I mean? Duncan Robinson is always going to have a role because he's a specialist. He can shoot. You look at defensive specialists. There's so many guys who offense doesn't match up to the defense, but there's always a job for them. Like, there's so many different guys who were drafted in the top 5 and didn't pan out, but they still get. Stanley Johnson was a lottery pick who didn't really pan out, but he still to this day gets jobs because teams are just looking for guys who are going to defend, be gritty, and make effort plays. And Stanley Johnson gives you that. Josh Jackson was on a bunch of teams and have had a bunch of different opportunities as a former top 5 overall pick, because it's like, hey, can he defend? Is he going to defend for us? Victor Oladipo has had so many different injuries, and there's still intrigue amongst the league for him, because it's like Oladipo is going to guard. Patrick Beverly is going to guard. Like, there's just specialties or special guys who specialize in different things, and that may be the only thing that can compete with versatility, is just having a special or being a specialist. Drummond just rebounds. I'm going to just go out there and clean the glass, offensive glass, and I'm going to just get paid from just rebounding my ass off. Same with Steven Adams. So versatility is important, but if you can come up with if you can be a specialist in any way, I think that can compete with versatility. Even if you're not the most versatile player, if you're just like, hey, come pick me up and I'm going to just shoot 40% from the corner, a team will probably sign your ass for a decent bag. Hey, I can't do shit but guard the pick and roll. I just guard the pick and roll well. Some teams going to be like, hey, we have trouble guarding the pick and roll. Give him $5 million. He'll come guard the pick and roll. We play against a team in the playoffs who specialize in pick and roll. He's now going to play 25 minutes per game, and he's going to be utilized in that way. A team that doesn't shoot the ball well, hey, we really suck at three-point shooting. All he does is shoot threes and catch and shoot. We have a player that goes, hey, we're the Raptors. Pascal can get downhill. He can make defenses collapse. We have nobody to throw it to. So we're going to sign him, and he's going to make 40% of his catch and shoot threes. Boom. Shout out to you, Smalls. Next, we got my boy Heavy But Light. He says, what's the ceiling for this Thunder team? The first thing I would say is the ceiling is definitely the playoffs. The playoffs aren't that far-fetched. Am I going to put all of that pressure and say it's playoffs or bust for them? I don't know, because they are still extremely young. This is Chet's rookie year technically, so it's like I don't want to put that pressure on them. But their ceiling is definitely to be a playoff play-in team. Like, they can compete on any given night. So I'm putting that on their ceiling. The ceiling for this Thunder team is the playoffs. His next question is, would you trade DeRozan or LaVine or both? I probably would try to trade DeRozan. I think DeRozan is just a little bit more older. Zach LaVine is younger. And to be honest with you, I was disappointed in the Bulls. I really wouldn't care who they traded. I just feel like they need a major shakeup. And the fact that they kind of brought the same team back that didn't do anything last year was disappointing. And I know it's probably disappointing to the fan base because at this point it's like the Vooch, DeMar, and Zach trio. It's just not hitting how you expected it to be. And at some point you got to wash your hands with it, and the Bulls just seem to not want to do that. They just don't want to accept the fact that, hey, they took a chance. The Lonzo injury really is an excuse for them. I really do think the Lonzo injury is a reason why this team isn't as good as they once looked. And they just have to understand that's out of their hands. Nobody could have predicted that. They couldn't predict it. It happened, and they have to just kind of switch directions. And the quicker they do that, the better the future will be. But the more they try to hold on to this, the more uglier the future becomes, because then guys lose value, guys walk in free agency, and now you don't really have any pieces. Where if you trade 1, 2, maybe all of these guys, you get a bunch of assets that make the future a little bit more exciting and a little bit more clearer. But I would have definitely have liked to see the Bulls do something, and maybe they will. Will the Mavericks make the playoffs this season? Yes. I think the Mavericks are locked to make the playoffs based off the offseason that they had. And his last question was, why hasn't anyone signed Christian Wood? I don't think anybody signed Christian Wood yet because nobody knows Christian Wood's value. Christian Wood is a good basketball player, especially a good offensive basketball player, but I think the NBA is about making your value work. It's about extracting your value in situations where you can win. Like, everybody's trying to win. So what way does Christian Wood become most valuable on a team that's trying to win? We haven't seen it. So I think what Christian Wood and his agency or his team should do is they should try to go to contending teams and take a major pay cut and try to show that, hey, there's a role for me on winning teams. I have value on teams that are trying to compete for championships. I can be that guy that can push you off the top, over the top. I can come off the bench. I can defend. I'm willing to rebound. I'm willing to accept my offensive role. I can have explosive offensive nights. He has to just figure out what he can do to bring value to teams that are trying to win at the high level. And I think he can turn a negative into a positive. I think him, Kelly Oubre, there's a few guys in the free agency pool who can do this method where it's like, hey, nobody wants to give me the money that I want. Nobody wants to give me a long-term deal. Fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bet on myself, a la Fred VanVleet, and I'm going to pick where I go. And I'm going to go somewhere where we're destined and kind of definite to be a contending team. And I'm going to go and I'm going to play for cheap. And I'm going to be valuable in the playoffs. And I'm going to then go into the next free agency. And I'm going to take my value to the bank. You look at somebody like Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown just did it where he said, hey, nobody really was trying to sign. I didn't have a bunch of teams calling my phone in free agency. He went to the Nuggets. They were an overpowering team. He filled the void. He really was good in the playoffs. He just made $20 million. So Christian Wood, take a pay cut and go to the Lakers. Play next to Anthony Davis and LeBron James for a dirt cheap deal. Be really valuable in the playoffs. Do everything right. Come in. I'm going to be an easy-going teammate. I'm going to be easily coached. I'm going to put in work. I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to buy in. And then when the playoffs come, I'm going to just stay ready and I'm going to hoop my ass off. And then that'll turn into a $20 million deal in a free agency because people are going to be like, oh, man, we want that guy. Hell, you can go to the Lakers. You can go to the Suns. You can go to whoever. But there's so many contending teams that are looking to try to build and build and build. If a Kelly Oubre walked on the door right now, was like, hey, I'll just take a vet minimum. All the contending teams would say bet. If I'm Christian Wood, I'm like, hey, Bucks. Remember when I played for y'all? Y'all want me back? I'll take a vet minimum right now. Me, Giannis, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis. We about to kill the league. And then I'm gone. And then I'm getting my bag somewhere else. That's just what I would do. But Christian Wood has to show his value on a team whose ultimate goal is to contend and win a championship. Shout out to my guy, Riley. He says, do you think we scout players too early in high school? Don't see a point in ranking freshmen and sophomores in high school when draft stock can change dramatically with 1 year of college. Example, Jaden Hardy, Dariq Whitehead, etc. Riley, this is a great question. And I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, I do think we scout and rank players way too early. You saying sophomore and freshman, they have rankings for middle school kids. My little brother has been a ranked kid in our state since he was a baby. Like, and that's the part where I really don't understand. And there's even, you can probably go and find like Jason Tatum mixtape, like top rank seventh grader. I'm sure you can find it now. Seventh Woods, I believe, was a middle school player when he got his hype started or whatever in the highlight world or whatnot. That's the point I don't understand. We shouldn't rank and really judge middle schoolers like that, because they're kids. They're not even done growing. The best fifth grader probably won't be the best fucking sophomore or junior, because who's to say that fifth grader is going to keep growing? What if he doesn't grow it much more? Now, he was just the best fifth grader in the world or the nation, and he only grew 3 more inches going into high school. Now he's a 5'9" guard. Y'all not going to be ranking him as high anymore. That's just a fact. You know what I mean? That's just the truth. There's no like somebody who's not ranked as a fifth grader may have an incredible growth spurt, and he can go into his high school year as a 6'7" wing now. This guy was just a scrawny 5'10" kid who was tall, but he had no coordination. Now this dude is a monster. Now he's monstrously tall. He's taller than everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just it just makes no sense. And what happens is the culture becomes highlights. The culture becomes a certain way when you rank, because everybody wants to be ranked. Parents want their kids to be ranked. The kids wants to be ranked because the kids take the rankings into status and scholarships, McDonald Americans, all of that. And so what happens is you look at the people who are ranked and you say, this is why they're ranked. Their highlights, their mixtapes, they dunking and all of it. And so what everybody wants to do is they want to put up numbers, and it becomes selfishness. It becomes bad basketball, and it just becomes stupidity. And then we look, and all of those guys who are highly ranked, they get to real basketball and they don't produce. You know why? Because you look at the fucking high school mixtape and all they're doing is cherry picking. They're 6'8", they're bigger than everybody, they play in the passing lanes, they're jumping everything, they're developing poor habits, and they're not working on skills, and it's just dunks. I'm 6'8", I'm bigger than everybody, I'm going to just dunk, I'm going to block shots, and I'm not working on my game. And it kind of mirrors the music industry, where it's like trendy. Everybody in the music industry, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get on, they're trying to get good records, hit records, and they're trying to sell records. So everybody's doing the fucking trends. I'm going to make a TikTok song. I'm going to make a radio song. And it's like, that's just not the way to go, because now when you finally get the attention that you were working for and you were trying to shortcut it, you get exposed. The real is going to have to perform. You can make 1,000 TikTok songs that get trendy and get you plays, but when it's time to drop that album, because you don't have a core fan base, you're going to flop. You can do all of the shit to get all of the highlights for the hoop mixtape, but when it's time to play college basketball, NBA basketball with the real hoopers, you're going to get exposed because you have no foundation that's built on legitimate basketball skills. You're not going to go to Division I high program basketball and fucking cherry pick. There's no way John Calipari is going to let you fucking cherry pick outlet dunks. It's just no way. It's just no way. And then we look at guys like, man, how did he not be successful at the pro? Because he had no fucking skills or habits that were good. It's all about a highlight. You're not playing against NBA players and just having highlights. Like, it's just not it. So yeah, I definitely think we scout. We ranked too early, and I think our ranking systems are extremely poor. What is valued in youth basketball isn't conducive to what is pro-level basketball or pro-level habits, if that makes sense. There's so many guys who slipped through the cracks, who weren't McDonald All-Americans, who weren't sought after as high-level Division I prospects, who have great NBA careers or are making, like, for example, we just seen a bunch of it. Tyrese Halliburton wasn't a McDonald American. He's a $200 million man. Desmond Bane was like, a late first-round pick. Went to the Froghorn, TCU, and Jamie Dixon wasn't a McDonald American. He had to stay all of those years in college. He just made $200 million. He's a more successful basketball player than a lot of McDonald Americans over the last few years. You know why? Because he wasn't a highlight guy somewhere just trying to fucking dunk and be on Hoop Mixtape. And he probably was somewhere playing real basketball, got real development, and translated real skills that translate to the pro level. And now he's out playing all of those guys who have 12-minute Hoop Mixtapes of just dunking. And I went off on a little rant, but yeah, we gotta fix it. We have to start watching youth basketball and saying, hey, that's cool, but is any of that you're doing translatable to the next level as far as high level production? A 6'8" guy dunking on 5'10" kids does not make me say, ooh, because guess what? That 6'8" kid is now going to go to the next level, and everybody's 6'8". So now what separates you? The next question we got comes from myself at 24 Clamps. He says, greatest advice you've ever received. The greatest advice I've ever received. The first one my mom used to tell me all the time when I was a kid, do not make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Do not make a permanent decision based off of a temporary emotion. Emotions. The root word of emotions is motion, which means it comes, it goes. It's always moving. Our emotions are always changing, are always circling and cycling through. We're happy, we're mad, we're sad, we're angry, we're excited, we're down, we're worried. Like, these are all human emotions that everybody in the world go through every single day. It's just what it is. They're emotions. They're in motion. So you don't make permanent decisions off of emotion that can change literally in the next 5 minutes. And I see people do it all the time. We all see we see viral videos every day of somebody making a permanent decision based off of temporary emotion. You know what I mean? Two people at a stoplight and they get out and they fight, and then somebody pulls out a gun and the video goes off. Like, that's a temporary emotion. But you pulling out a gun and going that far is you making a permanent decision, because now, you know, that's a life or death situation. That's a jail, murder, life in prison. Like, everything is so. I've seen people walk out of jobs, good jobs, and have mental breakdowns and different type of things, because it's like they're letting a temporary emotion control them so much that they're making a permanent decision that can fuck up their future or their life in one way or another, and it could affect different people. So that's some advice that I always try to think of. I'm an emotional person, as y'all know. Y'all have seen the podcast and seen me on social media. I'm a sensitive person, and I have no problem with it. It's just trying to learn how to control, guide, and maneuver through the emotions so that I can make better decisions while dealing with the emotion. So I'm not mad or ashamed that I'm an emotional person. It's just that I try to conduce myself in a way conduct myself in a way where I'm not allowing those emotions to make me do something that I'm going to regret. And I think that's advice that everybody in life can use, because people always say, oh, you're emotional, you're sensitive. We all are emotional beings. It's just what it is. Some people hide their emotions better than others. Some people suppress them better than others. Some people control them better than others. Some people can't control them. But we all have emotions. And if we all properly learn how to handle or deal with the emotions, I think a lot of bullshit in life will be limited. But you see stories all the time. Mike from the podcast is just at the gym, and he said 2 dudes got into it, and somebody went and reached for the bag and was saying, I'll kill you, over a fucking pickup basketball game. That's, again, an example of making a permanent decision based off of a temporary emotion. That basketball game probably didn't mean that much to either dude. And I was glad to hear that the situation was something that they both walked away from, because in our community where I'm from, too much of that type of shit happens, where people wasting their life over small situations that make their emotions explode. So that's some advice that I always live by. And the last advice I'll say is advice that we've all heard, which is be yourself. I think there's an extreme amount of value in being yourself. Like, it's so cliche, and we've all heard be yourself like a gazillion, million, billion times, but it's powerful. Being yourself is like the best thing a person can do. And I think today's age and today's society is promoting everybody to be themselves. Like, there's a lot of different lanes and a lot of different avenues of success where people can, like, become successful by just being themselves. There's a lot of people who who have built gaming empires. Gaming used to be nerdy. Anime used to be nerdy. These are all things that are nerdy things that have become multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industries. And it's like, people are striving because they're being themselves. Be yourself. Write that comic book. You know what I mean? Don't care about judgment that other people passing you through, because that may be your passion, or that may be your meal ticket to strike gold. You know what I'm saying? Think about the people who made all those comic books that have turned into franchise movie series and things like that, and made all of this money. If they were, concerned about somebody thinking they was a nerd, they probably would have missed out on a lot of success. So be yourself, man. Be yourself. Shout out my guy Piper Griffin 8. He says, outside of SGA, who is the most important piece for the Thunder to be successful? Easily, it is Chet. Chet is their reigning top overall pick. Not only is he the former top overall pick for them, but he's also a 7-foot front court player. The Thunder have abundance in guards, and their best player is a guard. But if your next best player or next most productive player can be a 7-footer, that gives you inside out, that gives you rim protection, rangy defensive rim protection, help defense. That takes you a long way. Having a superstar guard like Shea, all NBA guy who can average 30 points per game, and then having a defensive unicorn at 7 foot to protect the rim like Chet, that just sets your team up to have ultra success. Like, good defensively, great offensively, that just sets you up, and it takes the pressure off of Giddey, J-Dub, and everybody else surrounding those two building blocks. So I'll say Chet is the next guy up as far as importance for the Thunder. Next, we got the newest WNBA enjoyer at the drop step. He says, when evaluating defensive talent, what are the top 3 traits / qualities that you look for in that player that you value most? So the 3 top things that I'm looking for defensively. The first thing I'm looking for is communication, especially when we're talking about NBA basketball. I think communication is one of the top qualities as far as defense is concerned. Offense has turned into so much action. There's so many guys who are now 3-point threats, which creates more space. There's so much intricate actions, backdoor screening. You got the Spain pick and roll now. There's just so much going on, so much athleticism and size. 6'7" guards, 7-footers can dribble and pass and shoot. There's so much going on that I think a defense always has to be communicating. So communication is important. You know what I mean? Hey, a screen, we're switching, we roll. And when I watch NBA basketball, I see so many guys or so many defenses have hiccups because of the lack of communication. Screening. You have how many times you watch a basketball game, a pro basketball game, whether it's playoffs, regular season, NBA finals, where 2 guys run to one offensive player because of the lack of communication. There's teams that you got one guy preparing to switch, the other guy isn't aware that they're switching. You got one guy who's not switching. He's going to fight over the screen, but the other guy is already there ready to switch. You got guys, like I said, nobody goes to the back door, or 2 guys run to the corner. It's just so much miscommunication, and a lot of it is because offenses have grown to be so, like I said, intricate and have so many different folds to them and so many different actions that it's hard. But if you watch high-powered offenses, defenses always have lapses because I don't think guys communicate like they once did. And there's not a lot of anchors who are being the backline voice of a defense like Kevin Garnett used to be, or like a Rasheed Wallace even, where he's just loud. You can just hear him. I used to hear some of these guys on TV just watching. I don't really hear that shit no more. I hear calls and whining. Hey, I got fouled. He hit my arm. But you don't really hear switch, move, right, left, back door. I'm right there. You ain't really hearing it like you used to. And I'm not saying that teams and players don't talk. I'm just saying they don't talk as much as they should, considering how much offense has grown and how much space and pace and action is being thrown at you as a defensive player in today's game. So communication. Second thing is awareness. I think awareness is one of the most valuable traits defensively. I think that's why LeBron has been so good all of these years, offensively and defensively. When you think of LeBron and you hear about other players speaking on LeBron, he knows the team's plays. Just being aware of the characteristics of your opponent their strengths, their weaknesses, what they like to do, what they run to in times in adversity, their go-to shit. Oh, when we're down 2, we have to do this. Like, being aware of that, you can erupt a lot and really blow up a lot of your opponent's plays. And LeBron does that a lot, where he's just aware that, hey, this team, when they're on the left side of the floor, they love to get this guy on the right side of the floor coming off a double stagger. And now LeBron is aware of that, so he can blow it up, and he disrupted their whole play and their whole flow. And now they have 7 seconds left on the shot clock, and their play is disrupted. Now they have to take a crazy ISO shot that they weren't prepared to take in the crunch time. Or being aware this team loves to do flares for this guy. They love to backdoor on this play. Like, just the awareness of your opponent can take you a very long way. Another thing that's a part of awareness, being aware of what makes you valuable as a defensive player. All defense isn't created equally. There's a lot of different ways to be valuable defensively. We have rim protectors. We have bigs who are better at switching on the perimeter. They may not guard the rim as good as other 7-footers, but they may be able to hold their own on a switch on the perimeter. There's guys who are really good in the passing lane. There's guys who are good at deflections, 3-point contests, on-ball defense, is keeping the guy staying in front of them, pickpocket steals, loose ball recovery, screen navigation, off-ball chasing. Like, there's all type of defensive value, and I think it's important for defensive players to understand how they're valuable. Okay, I don't have the quickest feet in the world, but I have really, really long arms, so I'm going to be a pest in the passing lanes, and I'm going to always get a contest on jump shots. I don't have a crazy wingspan, but I'm extremely strong. So, hey, I'm going to wall you up. I'm walling guys up. I'm all chest. I'm bumping you through. I'm bumping you offline. I'm making you uncomfortable. I do have quick feet, so now I'm all in your shit. You can't get comfortable. I'm here. Everywhere you go, I'm here. I'm beating you to your spot. You have to know what makes you valuable on a defensive end. You have to be aware of that. And I think if players understood that part and they were aware of what makes them valuable on the defensive end, we'd have a lot more defensive players that are really, really, really good, because every player in the NBA has the tools to be a plus defender. It's just a fact. And then my third thing, outside of communication and awareness, is dog. I think the best defenders in the world and the worst, like the people I hate going against in my personal life, are the guys that you could fuck up and they don't care. Like, and what I mean by that is, a guy is guarding you, you make him fall, he don't care. He right back in your face. He don't care. He's not, his morale is not, he don't care that people are oozing and ahhing because he just failed. You cross me over, now you got to do it again. I'm right back. Like, those are the worst people to play against because you can't crush them. Like Patrick Beverly. Patrick Beverly don't care. He's just going to be right back. He's a pit bull. You have to have a certain heart and fight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going. I'm not having it. Like, defense is 95% pride and attitude and will and just like, and determination of saying, hey, you're not going to score. I'm not letting you score. Your team may score. You can pass it to him. You can pass it to him. You are not scoring. You are not getting by me. Or I'm a big man. Y'all ain't scoring at this rim. You have to shoot a jump shot. Just the determination of saying, I'm not going, I'm not having it. You have to have that as a defender. So those 3 traits, those 3 characteristics, I'm looking at and I'm saying, okay. Because you have to have that, especially at the NBA level. Imagine guarding Steph Curry. You can't let, Jeff T was just talking about, Steph Curry was cooking him, and he emotionally, they homies, and he like, man, stop doing all this silly ass shit, because it demoralized him with those shots. But the best defenders ain't gonna care, which is like Pat Beverly. Steph Curry can make all them damn shots. Pat's still right there talking shit like it never happened. It's just a certain delusion and dog you have to have in you. But those are what I would value when evaluating defense. Last but not least, we got my guy Intergalactic You and Me, which is a incredible Kid Cudi song. Shout out to you for knowing that one. He says, NBA players that you believe can thrive in smaller roles compared to what they're in right now. Example is Wiggs / Aaron Gordon archetype. I got one name for you. DeAndre Ayton. The Suns going out and getting Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, pairing it with Devin Booker, and they still have DeAndre Ayton, and now you have Frank Vogel as the coach. This is a prime position and situation for DeAndre Ayton to take all preconceived notions or all, thoughts and opinions about him. He can take them, ball them up, and throw them. If DeAndre Ayton buys into just protecting the rim, rebounding, and screening and running the rim to rim hard, he's going to have a new identity as a player, and his value is going to skyrocket. And I'm not saying that means he has to forget how to do post hooks or anything like that, but he just has to accept the fact that he's on a team that they're not going to prioritize him getting post hooks and fadeaway mid-range jump shots, and he's going to be backing down. Like, that's just not the way the NBA is. You have to kind of have to be thrown into that, like kind of how Embiid was. They drafted Embiid, and all the Sixers had was Embiid, so they kind of just played through him. You got drafted to a team that had Devin Booker, so they're going to always prioritize him and let him do what he wants to do, and he's going to try to get his shots, and they're not going to be dumping the ball. But DeAndre Ayton is a physical monster, so if he can just go out and say, I'm getting every rebound that's in my radius, I'm blocking every shot that comes my direction, and I'm just screening the hell out of guys so I can create open shots for KD, Beal, and I'm going to get my points on offensive rebounds, lobs, putbacks, and just outrunning guys. And I think he can still average 18 points a game. It's just that he's going to have to put 15 rebounds with that. It's no reason DeAndre Ayton can't average 18, 15, and 1.7 blocks per game. I don't think that's too much to ask for him. There's no reason he should be one of the top offensive rebounding starting centers in the league. You know what I'm saying? I think he can really eat off of simply being a rim running big who's setting good screens and just outworking guys on the glass. Because if he goes up and gets the offensive rebound, I have no problem with him going back up with it. He don't have to kick it out. He's talented enough to where they should make a rule. If DeAndre Ayton gets the offensive rebound, he has the green light to go up and try to score with it. He does not have to kick it out. That's his reward. You fight, you get it, it's your world. And I just think if he buys into those things, this team can be really, really good. And his perception and the way we identify him as a basketball player and his value is going to be completely different. It's going to be completely different. And again, it doesn't mean he can't ever do a hook shot or a post move. He just has to accept that that's not going to be a big basis of the offense, and he can't be deflated when he doesn't get those looks. If he can buy into saying, hey, I'm going to just go get my looks. I ain't got the ball in 3 possessions, so this time I'm going to get the next miss, and I'm going to create my own opportunity to score. And if he does that, he'll be a 14 to 15 rebound guy, and his points are going to be there because he's just such a good offensive guy. So DeAndre Ayton, buying into that, this team could be really, really good, and I think his value goes up a lot. And that's a wrap for today's NBA Weekly Q&A. As always, like I said, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Over the next few weeks, we may be tapping more and more into this. Definitely loving y'all questions. I feel like every Q&A, y'all get better and better. But as always, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. I will see y'all next time. This is NBA Weekly. I am Pee Wee the Plug, and I'm out. Peace.